getting really bad.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the regular board meeting of North Kansas City School District to order. And I would like to please invite you to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We had an executive session as a board earlier this evening, at which point we did our attendance, so no roll call will be necessary, and all of the board members are currently present. Our next item of business is extraordinary educational experiences, and I would invite Dr. Clemens forward, as well as Kate Place and Christy Barnes.
LEAD, or Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, provides a framework for designing and constructing a holistic green building that is healthy, resource efficient, and cost effective. To become LEED certified, the building project team must demonstrate that it meets rigorous performance metrics in sustainable sites, water efficiency, energy and atmosphere, materials and resources, indoor environmental quality, and innovation and design processes. North Kansas City Schools opened the very first LEED high school in the state of Missouri with Staley in 2008. But tonight we are here to celebrate the achievement of the Rising Hill and Northview sites. They both achieved the U.S. Green Building Council's level of LEED certified. This certification symbolizes the district's commitment to implement sustainable and healthy building practices to realize environmental, economic, social, and community benefits for decades to come. Congratulations.
First of all, I'd like to say congratulations to you two, but also to this Board of Education that has made a tremendous commitment to the LEED process in which we followed for several years now. It's an awesome opportunity to see the wonderful buildings that we get an opportunity to build from our community and our community support, but it's better when we know we can build it that's sustainable as well. And so we're just very pleased that these plaques will be displayed and somewhere prominent in your building. President Carroll?
And I would just say, I thought you were going to get certificates instead of having the carry. But you're welcome to put them down here. Everybody wants to hang them for us.
Also, your certificates. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and we're so proud of the opportunity to be good stewards of our environment. Thanks for coming this evening.
We are so thankful to have tremendous community organizations with whom we partner. Tonight, we are joined by some incredibly generous individuals who have a special presentation to make. Let's welcome the Elks Lodge.
Turn it over to you.
I'm Marty Malums. On a lighter note, if there is one this evening, thank God my wife and I have retired from public school. Being an administrator, because I cannot believe what you folks have gone through, and hats off for the North Kansas City School District and everything that you have done to get the doors open for our kids, and you've done it in such a wonderful way. Once we found out about the children going home, we were concerned at the Elks Lodge that we would be able to provide some help, some assistance. And once we found out about the meals being continued to be served through Dr. Evans, we thought we would write a grant to our Grand Lodge, and we would receive $2,500 to offset a little bit of the expenses for the continued meal support that you guys provided to the kids here in the district. So I'd like to introduce Lisa Brotherton. She'll be stepping in next year as the exalted ruler for the Gladstone Elks Lodge. Myself, past exalted ruler. And again, thank you for what you folks have done. You've taken a step forward, and I'm sure other school districts are looking at how well you have opened the doors back up for kids and staff.
Yes, awesome job. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I'd just like to say thank you. This will go to help cover the cost of fuel or food or pay our employees, and we're certainly thankful for this opportunity. We have such a great community that continues to step up. It would be much more difficult for us to try to do what we're trying to do without such a supportive community and everybody just giving us a holler and saying, what can we do to step in and assist you? So I certainly would like to say thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and you have met a need that was great in our community, and I know our students and our staff feel that sense of community around them, which makes their job a lot easier, and students feel very affirmed. So thank you so very much for your generosity.
Awesome. Keep going like you're doing. Thank you.
Yes.
Might just a minute. We are now at a point of visitor comments, and we have a motion regarding that. Mr. Harrell.
I'd be glad to. I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Education tonight suspend Board Policy BDDH that publicly states that public comment would not exceed more than 1/2 an hour, and tonight to expand that up to 45 minutes. So with that, do we have a second?
Second.
Been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of increasing our public time, conversation time, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion carried, and we will be doing 45 minutes. I do have a list of speakers that have indicated interest, and we will go through those speakers, and at the end, if there's any time remaining and anyone brings a yellow card forward, we will welcome them to the podium as well. We will limit our speakers to 3 minutes each, up to the total of 45 minutes. And please, I ask that you respectfully limit your time so that everyone that is wanting to speak has an opportunity to. We ask you to remain masked and try not to duplicate each other's comments if possible. And any individuals able to speak, we will extend a time or opportunity for them to reach out to us through Let's Talk. At this point, we have 2 speakers that are Staley Juniors, Elizabeth Dean and Caitlin Taylor. And if you would please, girls, please come to the podium. Thank you for coming tonight.
Members of the board, my name is Elizabeth Dean and I'm a junior at Staley High School. Currently, I'm one of 4 tennis captains and a varsity track and field participant. As such, I commend you for the decision to allow fall sports to proceed with following all the necessary precautions and guidelines. Thank you. However, that is just the student athlete side of me talking. I am also the assistant drum major for the Falcon Brigade and Diamonds and a member of the Falcon Acapella Choir. I can talk, I promise. My initial intention was to come to speak in defense of the performing arts. However, now that the votes have been cast in favor of allowing the performance groups to participate, I want to thank you. While sports can be the heart of the school, the fine arts can be the soul. Music plays as big a part in our lives as sports does, and in some cases, bigger. Music has the ability to bring together groups of people from all walks of life to create something beautiful. Music can create a common language between people, and it can be quite the influence when it needs to be. When I heard the fine arts might not be included in yesterday's vote, I was heartbroken. To think that the students who have worked just as hard to learn the music, the drills, the sequences, and the choreography for a show that lasts 8 minutes is honestly discouraging when we aren't able to share our gifts. I was hesitant to speak today, thinking I'm just a 16-year-old student with no position and no voice, so what influence could I have on this esteemed board? But then I realized that I am one of the many voices you all should draw your conclusions from. I live the effects of your votes. I am the result of your decisions. These are difficult and uncertain times for all of us, and your work is very much appreciated. And on behalf of the performing arts students, I sincerely want to thank you for allowing us to play, sing, and perform. But instead of let us play, why don't we shift the saying to let them watch? Spectators are just as important to the school and to our lives as we are, the performers. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Hi everyone, my name is Kaylin Taylor. I'm a senior, a basketball captain, a head volleyball manager, a state qualifier in FBLA and DECA, as well as a participant in 5 different clubs at Staley and an AP capstone student at the Great Staley High School. COVID-19 has impacted our lives in many ways. Our lives have been flipped upside down, yet we are all here today, discussing if activities in school should go on and if the community can let us watch. As an active participant in our school, I say, let us play and let them watch. If I were to list every single reason why I say we should let them watch and let us play, we would be here all day. Yet, luckily for you, I only have 3 minutes. COVID-19 has already taken away so much from us students. For example, this year I qualified for state in FBA and DECA. But when coronavirus hit in March, it took away the opportunity to compete in the state championship, as well as the possibility to be able to go to internationals in Tennessee. Also, my junior prom was taken away. These are all memories that I'll never be able to get back. Now, as seniors face our normal seasons being taken away and our families being able to watch. This year, Staley basketball team's goal is to make it to the district championship and actually win. We have been so close the past 2 years, and it would make my senior year to share this victory with my community. At our summer activities this year, we've been taking extra precautions for COVID-19. As a volleyball manager, I disinfect at least 5 ball carts every practice, as well as to help coaches take temperatures and check surveys for exposure to the disease. Us athletes also are constantly wearing masks, even in hot and sweaty gyms, as well as the outside sports wearing in the Missouri heat. On top of this, sports and activities are a way for us to communicate with other people. I've made some of my closest friends from sports, but also from being in student sections with my peers. So finishing my senior year with them is extremely important to me. As a senior, I want to be able to experience the Friday Night Lights for the last time, finally getting the front row of a student section, leading spirit rallies, and being able to have my own senior night with my family and friends. Us seniors have put in so much effort these past 4 years, and we want to end our high school years with our friends and our family and a victory. Before you make your decision about allowing spectators within sports, I'd encourage each and every one of you to watch the Nike ad, "If you let me play." It states, "If you let me play sports, I will learn what it means to be strong." And right now, with the world up in shambles, and all of us students and our community need this strength to get through this. So all 1,693 Staley students are pleading with you, let us play and let us watch. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentations. The next speaker would be Kim Thomas. And if not Kim, Jim Harris.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you. Approximately 1 week ago, my wife and I saw a statement on the NKC pages examining what our future 4th grader would be expecting in his upcoming school year. They spoke of a June 11th meeting on Community Circle centered on race and racism, where more than 200 members are gathered to engage in honest discussion about the things they must challenge in themselves. One question was asked about how the North Kansas City schools could improve its support and efforts to end racism in our schools. Racism has been an unfortunate stain on our nation since the Civil War. Fortunately, we have been improving generation after generation on this. It further said in direct response they have taken some actions since June, and this is where my concern begins. How did one question turn into full feedback? Were there any counter questions raised? Were there other examples provided of this racism? Since this is based on one question, does this mean that it was from one family out of the 200 participants in a school district that includes 2,000 or 20,000 children and therefore thousands of families? Was this question raised by a district or by a participant? There were multiple actions to be taken, but only one stood out to me, that they would redesign the curriculum to include the histories of all people, of social justice, and understanding of systems and how they work for or against people. Point number one is a wonderful idea. As I said earlier, opening the eyes of our children to the world can be enriching. Learning similarities and appreciating differences can only benefit the student. But social justice is my first concern. What is social justice? I cannot find a definition that is solid between many points I've gone to online and looking in dictionaries. It is a charged term. It's controversial. I question it's something that our children need to learn. So I'm asking for more detail on this new curriculum. Next is the understanding of systems. What systems? What people? Are we going to be dividing our children into groups? Will this make them see their differences as more than another aspect of a friend, like eye color or hair color? So I'm asking for more detail on this new curriculum. These last 2 points seem very ambiguous. I don't claim to understand how teaching them in classes will achieve the goal of the original question to end racism in our schools. I have a concern about unintended consequences where raising these for impressionable children may move them backwards, where they start seeing differences among their friends. I want my son to be inspired. I want him to learn about people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and the founders. I want him to be the change he wants to see in the future. I want him to judge others by the content of their character. And I want him to help bring us towards a more perfect union. Thank you.
Thank you very much for addressing us this evening. Julian? Thank you for joining us, Julian.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. My name is Julian Visite. I teach in Kansas City, Missouri at the Ewing Kaufman School. So I'm not part of North Kansas City, but I think we're all part of the general community together. I am speaking as a member and one of the founding members of Missourians for Educational Change, and I've been asked to come here by North Kansas City teachers. The reason being is that the options given by North Kansas City are going to put people in danger. Schools at face-to-face, high schools at hybrid. You have to think about the community you're putting at danger. This is a justice issue. First, who are the people most likely to be affected by coronavirus? Our Black and brown students and families, our low-income families, our teachers who are often in the age range that are most affected. And you're going to put them at risk because we cannot be patient and let cases fall. Teachers are afraid to speak out because they know their jobs are at risk. Sorry. Teachers are scared to speak out because they know they're at risk if they speak out. I've had messages from teachers asking me to come do this because they have been threatened with their jobs if they say anything on social media. So now we face this issue. Are we going to put people back in school too quickly, threaten lives, because we know we don't have the resources or the ability to actually stop it if we go back? We've seen it in Florida, in Georgia, in other countries, and now we're going to try it here. But we have an option in front of us. Virtual learning is not the way everyone wants to learn. I don't like teaching that way. I bet students don't like learning that way. But I'd rather see my students live another year. I'd rather see my fellow staff members make it another year. I'd rather see all my families make it another year than try to come back too quickly. So I ask you to make the difficult choice, but the right one. The one that people are going to be mad at you about. The one that kids will not understand and will be angry at you about. But I ask you to make the one that I know will protect lives and you know will protect lives. Go virtual. Provide the resources. Give school staff a time to prepare so they can teach it well. They can if you give them time. And do the right thing. If anyone else also wants to fight for this cause, Missourians for Educational Change will continue to do it. Please stand for other people. We should be protecting each other, not putting each other in danger.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I believe James Shackleford is next. Welcome, thank you for joining us.
Thank you and good evening. My name is James Shackleford, and I'm running for state representative here in the Northland for District 16, which encompasses parts of the Liberty and North Kansas City School District. I am not an educator. My wife and I do not have children, but as a potential representative, I feel it an obligation to stand with and support the educators in my district who are extremely concerned about the reopening strategies, as am I, and, outside of the incredible parents here in the Northland, care for the health and safety of their students more than anything. I am also here to show support to you, the Board of Education, and our entire school district. We are living in unprecedented times, and these decisions you are having to make are extremely difficult, I can only imagine. But as you make them, I strongly urge you to prioritize the health and safety of our students, teachers, parents, and our community first. For the past 2 months, I've been listening to our educators, hearing their concerns for their students' safety as well as their own. I met over Zoom with over a dozen of our teachers representing all grade levels and various schools within our district. Alongside their concerns, I was also able to see and hear how much love our educators have for their students and for their profession as they spoke directly from their heart. Our teachers are concerned about the lack of COVID testing capabilities and the reporting protocols among schools being inconsistent. Also, transparency and communicating about cases must be made a priority, and that does not seem to be the case right now, as staff and parents are left to the grapevine when finding out about cases. For example, just this week, there has been a reported COVID case at Staley High School when there were only adults in the buildings. If the virus can spread with just teachers, how can we protect our community from it when we put our students in the classrooms as well? This is not an isolated incident. High school athletic programs, teachers at Crestview, and students throughout the district have been diagnosed with COVID all summer long. It is the responsibility of our school districts to inform the teachers, parents, and community members so that all are able to make choices in the best interests of their families. When you're on an airplane, you are instructed to take care of your oxygen first and then that of the children next to you. Here in our schools, we need to take care of our teachers first so that they can take care of our children. We can do that by prioritizing their health and safety and by providing the proper PPE equipment to our teachers. Teachers are also very concerned about the other staff members who are not wearing their masks correctly. In one building, it has been reported that at least 4 staff members do not wear their masks above their nose and take their masks off to make phone calls in open areas. How can we expect 5, 11, and 18-year-olds to follow protocols when the adults are not? We need to be proactive instead of reactive. If we start school virtually for K through 12 now, then in 3 months' time, we may be able to safely reopen in full. We could possibly reflect and say that we took too many precautions. But if we are not proactive and instead are reactive, the impact to our community could be devastating. I ask you, is it worth it? Lastly, schools in other states have opened and have helped us see what could be our future. Outbreaks and surges that have unknown consequences to people's lives. That unknown is too great a risk to take with the children we are responsible for and the staff that is charged with their education. Our NKC staff is passionate and dedicated, and I know they will rise above the challenge of connecting with students through virtual means until the community spread is more contained. You must ask yourself tonight, do you want to be sitting here next year reflecting on what we wish we could have done to protect our staff and our students, or do you want to reflect a year from now and acknowledge that the steps you took today saved so many lives? Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I hope you have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Melody Shulker.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. You may or may not know me. I've been a teacher in the North Kansas City School District for 42 years, and I just retired this past May. I spent the last 42 years of my life dedicated to the students at Newmark Middle School and North Kansas City. During that time, the Newmark staff and the students were my family, as well as the staff throughout the North Kansas City District. Newmark was my home away from home. I arrived early, stayed late, and made every attempt to make the learning meaningful for my students. I found it impossible to not give 150% every day. I've kept in the loop, watching what the North Kansas City District and the districts around us are doing, what the media, the community, and the parents are saying about educators and the upcoming school year. My heart breaks as I watch my educator family go from being considered heroes this past March, as they fought and pulled together to provide a learning experience for the students, to now they're considered zeros. They are expendable. They are no longer the heroes. Comments are being said that teachers are lazy. They're getting paid for not doing anything. They're just sitting back. We want to just earn our money and do nothing at all. Parents are saying that they're going to be homeschooling their children, yet the teachers will be providing that curriculum, as well as the district providing the resources for those students. Teachers I know and admire and love want to be back in the classroom. They want to be back to work. They have been educating themselves, developing new strategies all summer long. This summer, I worried constantly, and I still do, about the safety of my educator family. My daughter is one of them. The safety of my students and their families. Teachers who return to the classroom right now are heroic, even if they don't feel it. They'll work hard to make this year the best it can be, given the circumstances they have to work under. They will put their heart and soul into doing it, just like they have every year. It will be a difficult school year. It'll be a difficult winter. It'll get worse before it gets better, but they will make it work. As you posted today on Facebook, on the district page, in addition to requiring masks, the schools are going to provide appropriate PPE and follow extensive cleaning protocol. As of this morning, when I spoke with several of my friends, none of them had received any kind of information about this. No training or any idea of what's going to happen in the classrooms. They have spoken about meetings that they have attended where people, adults in charge, are not wearing their masks, are wearing them below their noses. Some of them are pulling them down to speak. If administration isn't holding these people accountable, how can they hold children accountable? The children look up to the adults for guidance and as role models. If teachers and administration and staff members cannot follow the protocol, how can we expect the students to do so? As of this morning, when I spoke to several of my friends, they were preparing their classrooms. They were excited. They're looking forward to seeing their students. They are doing what they want to do to make the students feel safe, to feel loved, to feel cared about. Okay. Parents want their children back. They want them involved in sports. We trust that you, the school leaders, we trust the parents and the community will support whatever decision you make. We ask that you give the teachers grace, respect, and trust, and remember that they are humans, and that we are feeling all the feels and more that the parents, the community, and the school board is feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have a letter from retired teacher, choral director Bill Grace that he submitted for reading tonight. Dr. Daniels.
Dear Ms. Kalk and board members, I'm Bill Grace, a veteran of 24 years service to the North Kansas City School District as the Director of Choral Activities at Oak Park High School. I retired from contracted teaching duties in 1993. I've been asked to speak for many North Kansas City teachers and parents concerning the opening of the educational program for the year 2020. I am now 85 years old and have an asthmatic condition and a prime candidate to get the COVID-19 virus. I'm a resident of Tiffany Springs Senior Retirement Center. Because of the care the center has provided, absolutely no resident has acquired any symptoms of COVID-19, nor any staff member nor vendor. I would like to be in attendance at your meeting, but because of my present age and asthmatic condition, I've requested to write my thoughts to be read at the meeting instead. I served at Oak Park under the principal, Dr. Dan Kaler. As a public speaker, his mantra was, be bright, be brief, be gone. I shall try to abide by that in my writing. Much earlier, I wrote my thoughts on a Facebook entry that I passionately believed that the best answer to a 2020 school year could be best accomplished by totally canceling the fall semester, beginning the year in January, having all traditional fall activities during the spring semester instead. Following the spring semester will be a summer session, then opening the 2021 school year in the fall. All areas would be caught up at that point, and all teachers and staff would have fulfilled their contract responsibilities. I know that suggestion will not be put into practice, but we do have a suggestion concerning the opening of the 2020 year. There is still a high percentage of coronavirus positive tests being made in the greater Kansas City area in general, and in Clay County in particular. We request that all NKC students be in an online program through the month of September, and then a reevaluation be made for elementary face-to-face education to follow. We believe that unnecessary COVID-19 infections would occur if face-to-face teaching were allowed. Teachers, administrators, staff members, food service personnel, custodial staff, and bus drivers would be unnecessary targets, and yes, so would the parents and families of the students and school staff. Just today at 10:30 a.m., the Dow Jones average is up 300 points based on the possibility, not probability, of a COVID-19 medication or vaccine coming relatively soon. Why would any school district take unnecessary chances with the virus if there is a possible relief factor in the relatively near future? There are medications that seem to lessen the possibility of death from the virus, but there are many long-lasting health problems that might even be a lifelong problem. Thank you for your service to the young people of North Kansas City schools. Be bright, be brief, be gone. Go Grace.
Thank you for reading that. Leah Byers, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. My name is Leah Byers. As the city still stands for in person, I want to voice my concern should this change. I am a wife, a mother of 3 girls. I have one son-in-law and a 3-year-old granddaughter. My oldest started school at Maplewood Elementary and graduated in 2016 from Minnetonka. Brooke started last year as a clerk at Maplewood Elementary. Hallie is a sophomore at Oak Park and loves the choir program with Mr. D. Violet is going to Gateway and wants to be a cheerleader. I have stage 4 unclassified sarcoma. It has not been seen before. It is unknown, aggressive, and I do not get a remission date. I'm only here because it's location. I also have panhypopituitarism. I can literally be scared to death. I have lupus, Sjogren's, myasthenia gravis, IgA neuropathy, and am immunodeficient. I have always known my fate. It has been a struggle and a heavy burden. I have already been made aware of what should happen if I get COVID. Ventilator, no ventilator. The school district gave us a choice, in person or virtual. It was a hard choice for my husband, Chad, and I. My health was the main concern, but also the mental health of our daughters. We decided in person. We lifted some stress from our shoulders and we look forward to going back. When we made our decision for in-person versus virtual, we didn't know it meant more. If we go virtual, it will be a strong possibility our support staff is furloughed. But let's really just say it, you're going to lay them off. You can't boast about important family and staff, then lay off hundreds of employees. We know teachers are important, but support staff are still essential to their daily lives. Yes, my daughter is a clerk at Maplewood Elementary. She loves her job. It isn't about the money, it is the students. She was once a student there. But she's lucky to have family that we can help her out in financial times. Our lunch ladies, it's not a secret. A lot of our kids in our district go without food. They rely on us for hot meals. A student of yours, John, has Down syndrome. The paraprofessionals he needs will be gone, and not everybody can do this job. Miss Rebecca and her husband both work for the school district in supporting roles. You will wipe out an entire family's income. They will lose everything. There are many couples that work in the district. Bus drivers and janitors play a larger role than you can imagine. That wave and smile from them starts our day. You sold us on being a family, but when times get tough, don't bail out. It can't be just COVID. Is it about the money? I still pay my income tax on my home, on my salary, on my vehicles, on food, on clothes. I don't think there's anything that we don't have taxed nowadays. The amount you have received in taxes this year will be less due to COVID. Home tax has been constant as we just had a large increase, and there is still a real estate boom. Money is still coming in. If you lay off a large portion of your employees, families will not want to continue to pay their hard-working income for what is essentially glorified homeschooling. If we hit a level to go virtual, please remember we are a family and we take care of each other. Your support staff needs to know if they will have a job with virtual learning or in-person learning. Please support them.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Are there any additional speakers or yellow cards that have been turned in? Okay, hearing none, there aren't. I just want to mention that I appreciate everyone that spoke this evening. The entire board does and always appreciates community feedback. Again, if there were things that were addressed or questions that you have, please use our Let's Talk feature on our district website for a more timely and personal response. Also, I just want to say, although we did not respond directly to any of our speakers this evening, we will have a presentation regarding the district COVID's plan, and many of the questions or situations that they discussed in our presentations will be addressed through our staff and through Dr. Clemens. Additionally, of course, this meeting is live streamed and will be on YouTube, and things are evolving daily, so please continue to watch for the status of updates on the district social media platforms and throughout direct communications to families. We really do appreciate the interest of our community in our schools and your commitment to the safety and health of our children as they return to the classroom. That's all of our intention, is that they do return safely and with good health. At this time, I would request a motion for approval of the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded for approval of the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. The agenda is approved as presented. Consent agenda. You have a consent agenda before you. Do I have a motion for approval as presented?
Move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
And a second?
Second.
And it's been seconded by Mr. Harrell. Treasurer's report, please.
Yes, to my colleagues on the board, the treasurer's report was distributed before the meeting. We are basically 1 month into the year. At this point, there has been withholding from the state based on the fact of lower revenues so far and ending last year. We're 1 month in, and at this point, collections are running well. The thing we don't know is what's the economy going to look like for the next 11 months. And state revenues are dependent on sales taxes, city revenues are dependent on earnings taxes, property taxes are in there. When you put it all together, there's probably more uncertainty on the budget that we have and will consider later tonight than there has been at any time I've been on this board. At this point, there are no deviations causing grave concern, but we've got one data point out of 12, and it can go a lot of places from one data point. So it will be something we will be watching. We will be discussing it every month, and at this point, I am cautiously satisfied with where we are.
Any questions on the treasurer's report? Any questions on any of the other items on the consent agenda? Okay. Hearing none, we've had a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. The agenda is approved. The consent agenda is approved. Dr. Gaddy has some introductions as a result of our action tonight. Dr. Gaddy?
I do, thank you. I would like to introduce Miss Amelia DeLue this evening. We have been able to have a position that's coordinator of health information that will be funded by CARES money that is being brought to us from Kansas City, Missouri. So with this position, Ms. DeLue will be helping us with our contact tracing and our COVID education throughout the district. Mrs. DeLue brings international experience in psychology and public health. She began her career working in hospital-based mental health programs in Italy and went to work both as an HR specialist and lecturer at American University in Tirana, Albania. Upon relocating to Kansas City, Ms. DeLue worked as a program and health project coordinator with Young Women on the Move in Kansas City, Kansas. Most recently, she has served as an epidemiology specialist for Platte County Health Department, creating prevention guidelines and providing education surrounding safety recommendations in response to COVID-19. Ms. DeLue earned her bachelor's degree from the University of Bologna in Italy and will complete her master's of public health degree in December. We are so very excited for her to begin working with us on Monday, August 31st. Welcome.
Good, just in time. Thank you. Welcome. We hope you continue to enjoy your tenure with North Kansas City, and I hope it's calm as you begin. Thanks for joining us. There were no items for separate consideration of the consent agenda, so we will go to the public hearing of the 2020-2021 tax rate. And at this time, I would invite anyone from the audience that would like to speak to the tax rate. Hearing none, I will turn it over to Mr. Fritz to begin to discuss the item.
Thank you, President Kauk. Tonight I have with me Steve Marriott, our controller for the district, and he's going to go ahead and present the tax rate information as it pertains to the upcoming fiscal year. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. As each of you know, the Board of Education is required to set the tax rates for the funds for the upcoming year. This information is reported to both Clay and Platte counties and used to generate the resident tax bills. We use the forms provided by the State Auditor's Office to calculate our rates based upon the assessed values we receive from the county clerks. Changes in the assessed values are compared to the change in CPI each year, and that information is used to determine whether the tax rate has to increase or decrease to comply with the Hancock Amendment. Excuse me. This year, the operating levy is increasing by 0.06 of a cent, which, if I calculated it correctly, on a $100,000 house, that'd be about a 60-cent increase. And the debt levy is not changing at all, as was promised to the people in the election. We published a meeting notice in the Gladstone Dispatch last Thursday, as required by law, and we believe that we've satisfied all the legal requirements for the this year's tax levy, and respectfully request the board approve the resolution, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Other questions for Mr. Marriott? All right. So there's a resolution for approval of the tax rate as presented. Do I?
Madam President, I move that we approve the tax rate resolution as presented to the board as the basis for our collection of revenues for the coming year.
I'll second that.
No second. Mr. Harold? All right. Any other questions? Motion? Okay. All those in favor of approval of the tax rate as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Marriott. Moving to new business, we have item 1 under new business is the school tax levy. Mr. Fritz.
Thank you, members of the board. Actually, we just approved the tax levy, which is
We did,
great.
sorry.
But next up is the budget, which I'd be happy to speak to if we can go there.
And I would welcome you to do so.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Tonight in front of you, we have two versions of the budget. One is the gigantic, thick version that you all have at your chair. The other version is a shorter version. It just has a little bit less detail in some of the reports. As Dr. Ward mentioned in his treasurer's report this evening, this is one of the most uncertain years that we've had in quite some time, certainly since I've been on, and as Dr. Ward mentioned, since he's been on, and what a school district budget might look like in the upcoming year. As you know, there's a lot of uncertainty around the local economy, the state economy, and all the inputs and outputs of what is presented in this budget. But what I'd like to do is just go over some of the key points in this year's budget, very similar to past years. However, with the caveat that we are slightly more conservative due to increased uncertainty. So with that included in your budget, I have the short book up here. If you go to the beginning, I'm sorry, the page that's on the screen, I'm missing the number. Page 5 of the short book begins the executive summary. This was provided to the board on Friday update, and so hopefully everybody's had a chance to read through that. This is the Word version of the budget for all of those who don't like to dig into the spreadsheets and the actual numbers. Wonderful pictures of everybody are also included. We have also included our balanced scorecard for the year, including the strategic plan and some other great information. But as we get to the financial portion, really the first big item is kind of our board goal. Each year, since I have been with the board, or with the district, the board's goal for our fund balance percentage is plus or minus 2% of 16%. As you can see, in recent years, including the end of this year, we've been slightly over that. I think part of that is in anticipation of a rising enrollment. We've talked about this at other meetings and things, and our district has grown significantly in the past several years, and so we've been maintaining a slightly higher level of fund balance. And then as you get to the projected ending fund balance into next year, we are down to our close to our goal of 16.5%. A lot of this is due to the rate at which we are spending versus the rate that we are taking money in, of course. Again, there's a lot of uncertainty in this year, and that's well represented in here. A lot of that uncertainty centers around the state budget. We're expecting a decrease in state funding of around 6 to 7%, and with that decrease in state revenue, we see our fund balance start to decrease sharply. Moving on, the revenue projection here, I've included two different versions. This first version is with our most recent bond issuance. In June this year, our community voted to allow us to issue $155 million in bonds. We've since issued $95 million of that approval, and that is included in this first pie chart. The next one shows our funds without those the $95 million in bond issuance, and that's just for comparative purposes. If we were to have old books, you could see this would be more representative. Sorry, I'm having a hard time breathing with this thing. This would be more representative from year to year as we go. And then we have some different graphs on the assessed valuation and how that's changing. One point of note here, I will say, that is helping us this year is a reduction in the amount of TIF that is on the county assessed valuation. It has gone, first time since I've been with the district that it has gone down. Here you'll see the history of our tax rate and how that's been working. And then we get into the state formula. And the big portions of the state formula that we see increasing are, of course, our weighted average daily attendance and due to our increased enrollment. However, when we get to the actual formula, you'll see that in this current year, there is a DESI projected proration amount of 94.2%, and that's that 6% reduction in state revenue that I was talking about earlier. And then in the next following year, we've also included a potential for a 96.5% proration, which gets into our longer term projections. Moving forward, we get to our expenditures. With our expenditures, you'll see our total expenditures are up close to $400 million, $374.9 million to be exact. A big portion of that is going to be our expenditures related to our most recent bond issuance. That includes approximately 65 to 70 million of bond proceeds that will be spent over the next year. And then we move to the operating expenditures, which is our core set of expenditures. And as you can see, our biggest piece of the pie there is our salary and benefits. Back in April, you approved a salary schedule for teachers and classified staff that included a allowance for step movement and lane movement for all teachers, and an average 2% increase for classified staff as well. That at that time, we were also uncertain as to where we might be, and so we kind of held back on that, and we ended up with just allowing step and lane movement on the teachers, and then we had a slight increase for everyone else. Right now, I think we are in a position to be okay with that level of salary increase, but at this time, I also don't see us looking at that to further increase at this point in time. And then the remaining is just some more detailed reports on where our expenditures are coming from. We have our bond amortization schedules included. We have all of our leases and debt payments that are upcoming towards the end. Kind of shows you what leverage we're using to afford things like CNG buses and all those different types of Apple lease items and things like that. And then we also include the calendar and some school statistics, as well as the salary schedule, and some final information in case anybody's interested on how things are spent. So with that, what I would like to conclude with is I think we are on a solid foundation to get through this year successfully with the current plans that are in place, with the options that people have for online and the options that they have for coming to school. I think as we sit here today, this budget is solid and in good standing. But as we know, we are in very uncertain times and things can change rapidly. My promise to this Board of Education, to our community, is that we will continue to monitor and adjust as needed so that the funds that we get from our community are spent in the most appropriate way to keep all of our kids learning and ready for the next step in life. So with that, I'll take questions.
Comments?
I thought it might be prudent to clarify the weighted average daily attendance and just that virtual students, the question of virtual students versus in-person, and if there's a difference there. I think I've heard some confusion in the district on that.
Certainly. The way we report our attendance, when we have kids in class, we report them each and every day, and they have an average of what they attend. In general, our in-person class-to-class and in-person face-to-face attendance has been right around 93% when we have all of our kids in classes throughout the year. And that varies from school to school, but on average we get about 93 to 94%. The online attendance percentage that we are able to count when our students are online is 94%, as long as they complete the class, and there's some other requirements in there. So essentially, right now, if our kids come to school and attend face-to-face on a day-to-day basis, or if they're online at home, we're very close to about the same average daily attendance for all of those students. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Not a question, just some comments. Again, thank you very much. First of all, I want to state that there's a tremendous amount of information here, and I appreciate the format very, very much. I think more importantly, what I'd like to just comment on is that I really feel the district at this point in time is really in a healthy but not a wealthy position at this point in time. And because of the management of the budget, I feel like the plan that you presented is a very good one, and what is done more than anything else, it has allowed us to fund the educational needs of the current school year. And we have been able to do that basically because we have honored the board's commitments to a healthy fund balance. And obviously, this year again has thrown us many curveballs, and we do have less revenue coming in specifically from the state. But nevertheless, by having a healthy and a substantial fund balance to meet our needs, we're able to meet our obligations. So again, I think it's with the prudent management, oversight by the administration, again, and the Board of Education, that we are able to present a solid financial plan to our community for this year. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion if you're ready.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, just a comment, and then I'd like to make the motion. Matt and I spent a couple hours going through this budget in quite a bit of detail and wrestling back and forth with the assumptions that are embedded there. We made a few changes, not a great number, in fact, a very small number. But I'm comfortable with this budget as it's presented to you. And I respect the extreme work and careful work that Matt and his team did. I'm pleased to move that the budget as presented be approved and forwarded to the state as the approved budget of the North Kansas City School District.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further questions or comments? All right, all those in favor of approval of the final budget for 2020 and 2021, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The budget is approved. And I just want to add my thanks to you, Mr. Fritz, and all of your staff for working so diligently on that. I feel like because the numbers move so much, we know that we'll be hearing back from you and have frequent reports. So thank you for keeping us up front of this as well and giving us so much good information.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. We move to 6.03, balanced scorecard, and Dr. Clemens.
Yes, tonight we'll be asking the board to approve the balanced scorecard. You guys are very familiar with it, as we spent a good amount of time at our board retreat discussing the different topics and the direction for administration to move forward. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for your time. It was well spent. We got a lot of feedback, and now we're starting to work through the meaning of each one of our goals. And you'll see my goals at next month's board meeting and make sure that they transfer the way you'd like them to. Some of the highlights that we'd like to talk about is we appreciate the guidance around internal metrics for us to utilize instead of utilizing the DESE student achievement goals. So we are looking forward to bringing back to this Board of Education some internal measures that hopefully can provide the information on student growth and challenges that we have within our organization. We're excited about the change in the way we meet around our education meetings to more of a workshop, more discussion, dialogue with our Board of Education rather than presentation and feedback. That's something that will start on September 8th. It's actually the first day of school, so we thought it'd be a fun trial just to come in and have the workshop model around the trials and tribulations of the first day of school this year. So we're excited about that. And then on the 13th of October, which would be the second workshop, that's really where we'd like to dive in with the Board of Education and discuss student achievement and what those measures may look like and set expectations for our students and our staff for this year. Other items that I want to make sure that we include, other than evaluating student progress, is the Early Childhood Center. That's going to be a fun one for us as we continue to see that develop. Managing our bond and our budget, I'd like to say thank you to Matt and his team for doing a phenomenal job with this budget. I would have to tell this board, anytime you spend 4% of your fund balance, that's scary. But in these uncertain times, that's why we've worked so hard to have that fund balance, is to protect us in these difficult times. And appreciate Matt's work. I know he just cringes every time he sees me walking his way as we try to apply for every additional resource that we can to try to offset some of the shortfalls within our state, and we'll continue to do that. We also have many things around COVID in there and how we're adjusting with COVID and providing the supports to our students and our staff, particularly around social emotional supports. Equity inclusion will stay in there as we continue to work with all students that we have in them. One of our fun ones that we've worked through for a year now and getting ready to really see the implementation of is our high school redesign. And so we're eager to get that work together. So again, the balanced scorecard is there for your review. I know you've seen it many, many times. We would be requesting that you approve the balanced scorecard tonight so that we can present you with my goals next month. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Dr. Clemens? As a board, we have seen these a number of times and worked through, so thank you for the presentation tonight. Do I have a motion? It's been moved. Second. And seconded for the approval of the balanced scorecard as presented this evening. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. And the balanced scorecard is approved, and now the work really begins this year. So it's exciting to have a blueprint for where we're going. Thank you. We'll look forward to next month's report from you. Item 6.04 is board policy ACA, and Mr. Book is going to address that.
Yes, thank you. As you know, we're handling this board policy a little differently than what we typically do, and so I want to provide a little more information about this policy because we're going to be asking the board to adopt it here tonight. And typically, we, of course, have one presentation 1 month and then adopt the second month. But this is board policy ACA, and it is addressing Title IX sexual harassment and what the district's responsibilities are with respect to Title IX claims of sexual harassment in the school setting. The The United States Department of Education has enacted some new regulations that govern both K through 12 and higher ed's response to claims of sexual harassment in schools. And those regulations went into effect earlier this month. And so that's the reason that we're asking the board to approve this policy now so that we have a policy in place that is compliant with the regulations. This policy has been drafted to meet the requirements of the new regulations. It applies to the most extreme types of sexual harassment. Harassment that is so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it deprives the alleged victim of the opportunity to access the district's educational programs and benefits. Some examples of that might be quid pro quo sexual harassment. This for that. You're getting some type of benefit in response or in return for some type of sexual act or sexual favor. Sexual assault or violence is certainly something that could potentially be a Title IX type of sexual harassment case. And so we still have Board Policy AC, which is our more general anti-discrimination, anti-harassment, anti-retaliation policy. There could be times when there are claims of sexual harassment that exist that still need to be addressed, still need to be investigated, that may not hit that Title IX level, but we'll still have Board Policy AC there to make sure that we are still investigating, still remediating, still making sure those instances are addressed as well. The focus of the regulations is to treat both parties fairly and ensure there is no bias in favor of either party. Through the policy, the board will appoint a Title IX coordinator, and we are proposing in that policy that is Dr. Hilbitz. Dr. Hilbitz is also our Board Policy AC coordinator, so he will be in a good position to kind of understand those roles and responsibilities. There is a very formal and itemized grievance process in that policy, as you saw. The Title IX coordinator intakes all grievances. The coordinator determines if it meets the definition of sexual harassment under Title IX, then assigns an investigator to investigate. At time, the Title IX coordinator must offer supportive measures, possibly counseling, possibly a schedule change. There's all sorts of different things that might be available to both parties at the outset of the investigation. Both sides have access to all information that is collected by the investigator, and that's a little bit different than what we're used to. Once an investigator is finished gathering information, it is then assigned to a separate decision maker. The parties have the opportunity to send the other party witnesses written questions for answer. After this process takes place, the decision maker determines whether or not it is more likely than not that Title IX is violated. Either party has the right of appeal, of course. And then throughout that process, the Title IX coordinator can also offer an informal resolution process. Like mediation would be the most typical example, in an effort to resolve the grievance without going through that investigative process. But if that doesn't happen, then certainly that investigative process will continue. As you might imagine, there's going to be quite a bit of training involved for the Title IX coordinator, for investigators, decision makers, and those hearing appeals. And those will be district staff that will ask to do that. Training materials must be posted on the website, so you'll be able to see that, and everybody will be able to see what materials we are using. And then, of course, importantly, just like Board Policy AC, the policy strictly prohibits retaliation. So an individual can't be retaliated against because they filed a grievance, because they participated in the grievance or were a witness in a grievance. They can't be treated adversely because of that. So that is my summary of a I know, a lengthy policy. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't have any questions. I move we accept the policy as presented.
Second.
Sorry. It's been moved and seconded to accept the policy as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Policy has been accepted. Thank you for your thorough explanation. We now move down to board and superintendent reports and discussion, and we will start with Dr. Perry Hilvitz with the equity policy, which begins to, I think, address some of the questions that were presented this evening by our guest.
I certainly hope that it's. I want to thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to present you with the first reading of the proposed new equity policy. I really did appreciate the feedback that we got from the board during the August retreat. I thought you guys did a great job with that. We have incorporated that feedback into the draft policy. Because this is just the first reading of the policy, there's no vote needed today. I am hopeful to be able to bring you the policy again next month for an actual vote of approval. And thank you for your time. And Madam President, if you or the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Are there any questions on this first reading, and did it represent the comments at our retreat? All right, very good. Thank you very much, and we'll watch for it next meeting. Item 7.02 is our COVID update presentation, and Dr. Clemens is going to kick us off here.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to start off by thanking our staff. We almost have everybody back now, and so our buildings are they're getting full as our teachers and many of our yellow buses are now traveling the path, and so I have all kinds of friends coming in, as you can tell. This is a comprehensive update today because it crosses over so many different paths, from the kids that get on the school bus to our custodial cleaning products, to address many of the concerns that were raised here tonight. So again, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you, as well as our cabinet, to our teachers, our principals, for really making things work. The first graph that we have, you've seen a few times. This is the virtual versus face-to-face. We have about 27.7% of our student body that is going to take advantage of the option we provided. 777 of those students are school PLP, and 5,026 of those students will be doing Canvas, the online option. That's how that breaks down. Our schools range from 17% taking advantage of virtual all the way to 38%. And so we feel like we are getting real comfortable with those numbers. I think Dr. Gaddy is extremely excited as she continues to monitor and adjust with Kristen Haven. So we're pleased to be at that point. So we've brought criteria to you many times, and we thought it would be a good idea to update you on the criteria. You can see the highlighted areas is where our rubric is at this point. The number of new cases per 100 in the last 2 weeks is at a 91, which is a medium range. The trend in incident rates is decreasing, which gave us a low. That's a 16.2% decrease. The positive rate for it, now this one's a little tricky. I want to make sure that I'm clear and transparent. Clay County is 8.04. Kansas City, which encompasses South as well, is 12.4. And then Jackson County, which doesn't include Kansas City, is 16.5. So you can definitely see north of the river, our cases are less than what we are seeing south of the river, and the positivity rate we hope will continue to stay there. One of the things that we're hearing a lot from Kansas City as well as Clay County is that the level of testing is at its lowest level since June, since the middle of June. Their goal in Kansas City is to have 3,150 tests, and they only gave out 2,415. I think we were able to diagnose that Clay County last week only did 550 so tests, which is lower, and so what we are hearing is that people that are symptomatic are the ones being tested, which drives that rate up just a little bit. But we're certainly continuing our conversations with both Clay County and Kansas City as we continue to make sure they see what we see and feel comfortable in moving forward. So if school was to start tomorrow, we would have our face-to-face elementary school for students in pre-K through 8th, and then we would have the scenario number 2 for our secondary students. And that's where we were the last time we had the opportunity to meet with the board. Again, I've asked our Clay County when we could have a drop-dead date to share with our families around what our model would be. We're pretty strong in this area in terms of our rubric. We plan to attend school this way, but they wouldn't give me a date. They said it would be inappropriate for them to give me a date on when we could say this would be the learning plan for our schools, but I feel very comfortable in saying we're pretty solid within our rubric. I don't see us going below 5%, which would allow 100% face-to-face, and I don't think I see the criterion going to two highs, which would then require 100% virtual. So I think we're in this area for a little while. And with that being said, I'm going to share many of the presentation components to Dr. Evans as he's leading our cleaning, transportation, custodial, and maintenance areas.
Thanks, Dr. Clemens. What I wanted to do tonight with the board is just kind of take us back just a little bit and kind of give the little history of this group that you're going to hear from tonight. When Dr. Clemens talks about the 13th of March, we all kind of remember that as a day that Dr. Sutton was trying to figure with Matt and Keith and everybody how to get out all those devices to our youngest learners. And I looked at the calendar today, and it was Friday the 13th, so we probably should have known something at that point. But in the back of the house, which is this team, we were also spinning our wheels. And what our task was from our superintendent was we've got to figure out if this goes the way we think it's going to go before spring break, then we've got to figure out a way to feed our kids. It's not an option. And there's a lot of fun, and with that being, and we got to do it safely. And really, we only had what we knew. We didn't have the historical basis to pull from. So we were all just kind of starting our new playbook from that point on, and we really just didn't have anything to draw from. So this team that you're going to hear from tonight worked the entire spring break on the phone with me and with other cabinet members, trying to figure out, one, how we're going to feed them, how we're going to keep them safe. And what Stacy will talk about is what do we have in the warehouse. I mean, I think everybody kind of knew what PPE was at that point, but not like we know about it now. and I think that this group really, I just want to say thank you, because it's been a grind for this group and their teams, and they've met the challenge. I know that you guys haven't had an opportunity to hear from them, and I think you'll be really impressed with what their knowledge is and what they've done, and just the sheer mass of quantity of things that we've acquired because we got on it fast. So one little anecdote, I talked to Stacy many times along with Raul and Matt and said, well, how many masks do we have? How many gloves do we have? Do we have a lot of those things? And Stacy said, no, but I'm ordering them right now. And that was on Sunday, so that had been the 15th. We're ordering, we're going. We don't know what it's going to look like. But because of that, we were able to, on Monday, when we started the process of delivering food with our buses and everything else, we were able to provide gloves, we were able to provide masks. And at that point, we didn't know necessarily what the guidelines were going to be, but if they chose to wear those and the food handlers all had the gloves, and that's really because of the work of this group. So I just kind of wanted to give that perspective, and before you hear from them, and give you our thanks. I know that Dr. Clemens feels the same way, and he's told you guys that personally, but I just wanted to do that from the board too. So Stacy?
Thank you, Dr. Evans, and thank you, board, for giving me this opportunity to talk with you and inform you of just the amount of items that we do have in stock in our warehouse. Our number one goal right now is to ensure that student and staff safety come first. That began in March, and it's continued on, and it will continue on. As we've done this, we have procured masks by the multitudes. We currently have in stock, even after handing out, and over the past few weeks with teachers coming back, we have over 200,000 child-sized disposable masks in stock and over 200,000 adult-sized masks in stock. We have KN95 masks. These are masks for custodial workers, maintenance, food service, and health room workers, sped classrooms, places where possibly contamination could be higher
and we want to ensure that they're safe. We have 6,700 of those masks in stock currently. We have washable cloth masks. We have distributed over 22,000 district-provided cloth masks to this date to students and staff. We have 42,500 cloth masks that were donated to us that we can still hand out to our students and our staff as the year goes through, because we all know something happens to masks. We have also procured face shields. We have already distributed 1,000 of them, with over 2,000 more in stock, so that our bus drivers, our food service workers, our early childhood and SPED workers, and staff cleaning contaminated areas can have a face shield as well. We have 202,300 pairs of nitrile gloves, sizes small through extra large for general use, and 26,000 pairs of blue nitrile gloves currently in stock for the health rooms alone, sizes small to extra large. We have 180 gowns after already providing them for early childhood and SPED going forward should we need them. The hot commodity, alcohol-based hand sanitizer. This is where it all began for me on that Sunday, with a phone call from Dr. Clemens on the line with Wiggers to ensure by Monday morning we'd have hand sanitizer to go out. Since then, our quest has continued so that every classroom, every office space and common area could have sanitizer. We currently have 5,013 2-liter bottles in stock just solely for classrooms. We have arranged to have a monthly shipment of 3,900 2-liter bottles coming to us every month so that we can continue to meet the demand and be safe. We have over 1,100 16-ounce bottles of hand sanitizer and 979 7.5-ounce bottles. As well, our friends at Wiggers are helping us again this week as we continue. We have 30 quarts in stock of Wiggers, but we are getting 360 more 2-liter refill bottles and 400 spray bottles strictly for transportation, as this is what they use on their buses. We have 16-ounce sanitizer that is specifically for athletics, with 236 bottles of that in stock, as well as 46 cases where there are 4 one-gallon bottles in each case with a pump solely for athletics. Soap, 7,008 dispenser refills currently in stock as we anticipate hand washing nearly doubling what we did last year. Wipes. Wipes are a big issue too. We have other cleaning protocols, but we have wipes that are specific for technology. The Santa Cloth wipes that we use can also be used in the SPED rooms. We have 190 cans currently in stock of Santa Cloth wipes. Yarny wipes, which are 75% alcohol wipes, we have 12,000 containers that we just received. These can be used on iPads, laptops, copiers, and any other technology device that our district owns. We have 2,000 packages of the 75% alcohol wipes for Sanamax wipes. We have already purchased and distributed over 338 medical infrared thermometers, with each building receiving no less than 2. Many buildings, the high schools and middle schools where there's athletics, receiving many more. As well, I currently have in production sneeze guards, as you will see my display. These are plexiglass, 100%, so they can be sprayed with our cleaner that our district is using for cleaning protocol, and it won't damage them. I have 6,000 in production. I will have 2,000 by starting day, with 1,000 to 1,500 coming every week after that through the end of September. That is what I have provided, and at this time I will pass it off to Doris to allow her.
I don't know what's going on. There we go. Okay.
Am I going backwards? Okay, thank you. All right, sorry about that. I'm Doris Farage, Director of Custodial Services. Here back when, and I'm just going to, kind of tell you a little story. When the COVID-19 started headed towards the United States, actually got in the United States, I got a little concerned. We have a protocol that we put in place in November. It's a flu protocol. And I got a little concerned that our product did not have EPA, it wasn't EPA certified to kill the COVID-19. So I called our new vendor partner at Home Depot Pro, and the current one we had did not kill the COVID-19. This was back in February, I'm sorry. And he said, but we can get Virex 256. We had it in our buildings within a day and a half. So our protocol that we put in place in November for the flu is exactly the same protocol that we use for COVID-19, only we use a different product. The BioEsk is what, little bit of consideration on that. We wanted to get one product that we didn't want to have 3 or 4 products for the teachers to use. We wanted to make it as simple as possible. The BioEsk is a botanical disinfectant. It doesn't need to be wiped off. It's food safe. It's student safe, kids safe. So if they get it in their mouth, it's not going to hurt them. With the BioEsk, the way we're hoping that this works, or we want it to work, and it will work, is when the teacher's coming in the morning, they need to miss the desk, make it food safe for the kids to eat breakfast, miss the desk again before lunch, makes it safe for the kids to eat lunch. If they're in high school, middle school, they're changing classes, all they need to do is to miss the desk between classes. It's got a 4-minute dwell time. It will be safe for the next class to come in. It has the COVID-19 kill claim. We also use this BioEsk in the cafeteria and in the kitchen. So with this one product, we get to do all of this, keep our kids safe with a 4-minute dwell time. We also use this in our Victory machines, which we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So that's the reason we chose that. We wanted to make it easy for teachers. The Virex 256 is what the custodians will be using. It does have the EPA claim. This is the one we got back in February. They will be using this during the day. They use it in a bucket versus a spray. With the microfiber rag, this gives it its 10-minute dwell time. They're going to be using this during the day to wipe down knobs, handrails, your push bars in the front, bathrooms, paper towel dispensers, toilet paper dispensers, all the touchable surfaces. That's our job. That's what we're going to do. They'll be doing that as many times as they can during the day. I told them at least twice because I know they're going to be busy with lunches because of the students eating in their classrooms. At night, the custodians will be using this product to clean all high touchable surfaces. That's in the classrooms, in the hallways, in the bathrooms, everywhere basically. Hand sanitizer. The custodial department has supplied hand sanitizer at the entry doors and again at the cafeteria. So when they walk in the building, they can use the sanitizer. They go into the cafeteria, they can use the sanitizer, and also as they leave. So we're hoping that will keep down some of it, especially when they're using shared items. And the next protocol that we have, and we are asking the nurses, we're asking the principals, that if they have a kid that goes home sick, flu-like symptoms, COVID or not, to let the custodials know, the facility managers know during the day, so that we can go in that room maybe when they take a restroom break or go outside for the playground, recess. We can go in that room and we can disinfect it in a matter of just minutes. If we find out that it is a COVID-19 positive, we have this machine. This is Clorox machine. It is also food safe, so it doesn't hurt anything. We have a Victory machine, which is a handheld machine that we can spray. Some of you may have seen that at graduation. And then we have a backpack. We just ordered 40 more machines, so we will have these in every single building in our district. The way we've done it up to now is if we have a COVID-19 positive, we go in the building that day, morning before school starts. We'll spray the areas we need to spray. It takes 5 minutes, and they can enter that area again. I think that's it. And this, just to show you the touchable surfaces, the one up at the top, that's basically what teachers need to spray, and that's it. Pretty much everything else, that's on us, and we'll take care of it. Thank you.
Good evening. It's always a pleasure to be able to represent the men and women who work in transportation. Over the last several years, as you all know, just about anywhere you go, everywhere you go, it seems you find a food truck. If you go to the mall, food truck. If you go to the store, food truck. And so we decided to turn our school buses into a food truck back in March. And it turned out very well. Shortly after this happened, though, I had a meeting with Kate Lawson about 3 weeks after we started food delivery. And she goes, "You guys are so lucky. You guys are the hands and feet to the hearts of the district." And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, boy, you are right. You actually got that right. We do feel lucky for every smile, for every meal, for every thank you that we get from our district families. It has been a blessing. Our procedures are going to be that every driver will wear masks and gloves while students are on board the bus. Every aide will wear gloves and mask also, but they're also going to be provided a face shield that they can wear when buckling and unbuckling and just being in close proximity to students like they are often. There has been talk about building like a plexiglass barrier for the driver. None of those things have been approved yet by NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Institute. So if it is approved, it'll certainly be a ways down the road. So we just thought with having the moving face shield to go with us anywhere we need to, and it acts as a barrier. We will load buses from the back to the front to minimize student-to-student contact, and then have them exit from the front. We'll have seating charts in place from day one. That way we can assist with contact tracing and have students sit one to a seat where possible based on load counts, but certainly no more than 2 to a seat. We'll have family members sit together also. Our expectation is that students arrive at the bus stop or at the bus when they come in the afternoon with their face mask, but if they don't have one, it's okay. We'll hook them up with one. We're asking students not to share toys, not to share cell phones, things that are common touch items. We want them to keep them to themselves. Did I do something wrong here? Okay. After each of the 5 tiers, the common touch points on the bus will be disinfected with the Oxiver TB. And then when back at the lot, a deeper cleaning will take place with Virex. Same thing will happen in the afternoon routes also. Then on Wednesdays, when we have a little bit more time, the buses will be completely disinfected with the backpack sprayers that you've seen there. Each week, all of our buses will receive about 275 hours of cleaning and disinfecting. So our motto is not on our watch. Our buses are going to be clean and safe and ready for our students. So, Dr. Casey Volklock.
Good evening. As you all know, on August 10th, we began bringing back our full load of fall sports and activities, including these groups here. As you are also aware, you know that back in mid-June, we started bringing smaller groups back onto our campuses, and we began implementing the current protocols and guidelines and working with our health departments to make sure those kids and staff members were as safe as possible. That allowed us the opportunity as the summer went and more guidance came out, both from the Missouri State High School Activity Association Sports Medicine Advisory Committee and our local health departments. We were ready to go on August 10th with our full list of protocols, with all the equipment that we needed to make sure our students and staff would be as safe as possible. With the support of Stacy and her crew and Doris and Michael and transportation, you know, it's been a great success so far. Certainly the high school ADs and the coaches have bought into this new way of doing things, and they are implementing every single one of these things every single day, which I'll talk about here. But our number one strategy for our students that are participating in athletics and activities is to empower them and express to them that really they can be leaders in their community. And our coaches are having discussions with them about doing those 4 things that everyone is telling us we need to do. Wash your hands, wear your mask, stay socially distant, and don't come to school if you're feeling sick. And they are empowering our students to do that not only when they're on our campuses, obviously, but when they leave. We certainly feel like they're safe when they're with us, but as you all know, when they're not with us, we're not 100% sure what they're doing. So those guys are empowering them to make sure that they can be leaders, and there's a lot on the line for those students, and they understand that. So they want to make sure that they do everything they can to have a long, successful season, which is certainly what they want. When a student arrives on our campuses, there is a list of things that they have to do every single day. So when they step out of their car, they have to have a mask on, and they walk to their coach's spot, and typically you'll see these little QR codes around the practice. So at a tennis court, you'll see 5 of them posted on the poles. In a gym, you'll see 3 or 4 of them on the wall separate. Students walk up, they put their phone on there, and they take a quick questionnaire. That questionnaire goes over, have you been in contact with anyone in the last 14 days that's tested positive? Have you been tested? And are you experiencing any symptoms? And if they answer yes to any of those questions, they then go and talk to our athletic trainer, and they get questioned further. That athletic trainer will sit them out of practice that day. They'll make parent contact, and they'll explain, here's your student had a positive screen, here's why, and here are the things you need to do to return. Once they do the questionnaire, and the questionnaire also serves, that goes right into a Google Doc, and then our coaches have every single kid that took the questionnaire the day they attended practice, so it serves in attendance as well. When we're trying to do our contact tracing, we know exactly who was there and how they answer the questions. Following that, they go and get their temperature checked, and so we do the CDC standard of above 100.4. If any student's above that, they go into a spot inside the building, they get it tested again, and if it's above that, they then sit out. Okay, the athletic trainers with them or health professionals with them at all times during that, and that would be a positive screen as well. So after they do that, they'll go wash and sanitize their hands, and then they'll, again, keep their mask on that entire time when not engaged in strenuous activity. Our coaches have had to adjust how they run practice, and that's been quite the adjustment for them. Trying to do things and keep kids separate, keep kids in small, consistent groups. They've had to modify a lot of what they've done, but they've done that really well. And you can walk into any of our practices and you'll see our coaches trying to do that. Our coaches, I forgot to mention, all the adults on campus are wearing masks at all times. You should never see a coach on campus without their mask on the whole time that they're coaching. And then obviously social distancing to the extent possible when still playing the sport. And then the final thing that Stacy and Doris have really helped out with as well in their crew is disinfecting equipment. All of our coaches have the Virex disinfectant. They all have spray bottles, and they're all spraying equipment every night. This equipment isn't shared, but they're still wanting to do everything they can to make sure that it's clean, it's disinfected, and it's safe for the next day. So those are the protocols we have in place currently. And as you all know, as new updates happen, as new research comes out, we're going to continue to make sure we monitor and have the latest updated protocols to keep our students and staff safe at all times. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about contact tracing and what we're doing with that, and then give you an idea of sort of how our communication flows through the district once this is communicated to us. So Johns Hopkins University has a training that takes about 5 hours to complete. This is the training for contact tracing that the Clay County Health Department recommends for all of their contact tracers. Currently, myself and Shannon Tilsworth have completed this training. Tomorrow, we will have 25 more people complete this training. Most of those are school community resource specialists or social workers, and they will be helping with this process as we have more students come into our buildings. Typically what we're doing right now, Shannon Tilsworth is taking care of most of that contact tracing. We try to do that from the time that we get the information. We try to turn that information around within a day to get the contact and communication out to the people that need to know it, our staff, our parents, and anybody in the buildings that we need to be communicating with. So as you know, and as you met Anila earlier, we've hired a health information coordinator. So our plan for her is that she will oversee our COVID-19 database and keep up with that information. We're tracking both staff and students that we have who have received positive tests and who are being quarantined at any time. And so she will be communicating also, that information goes to the Clay County Health Department and the Kansas City Health Department, and she'll be our primary contact for that communication with them. She'll also create protocols, reports, messaging, and then communicating with parents, staff, patrons, and anybody else in the community that needs that information. So finally, we want to talk a little bit about how the communication flows. And there's lots of arrows on the screen, but there's lots of people involved in this process. There's lots of departments to notify, lots of staff to notify, and then, of course, our community. So typically what happens is we get information from students or staff, and that comes to us in the form of either being notified that there was a positive test or being notified that somebody's been exposed. Or sometimes it's just people telling us that they're experiencing symptoms and maybe they're seeking a diagnosis. That information is typically given to the school or to a department. And when we have our social workers trained, the information will then go to them if it's in a school. That information will flow back to our health data coordinator, who will then communicate with all the departments that need to know that information. So academic services, human resources, communications, just to make sure that everybody has the needed information. So all those moving parts can go into, into play at that time, depending on what the situation is. Information will go back to the school, typically from communications, in order to send information out to our staff and to our parents regarding the situation at that school. And then it finally will end up with students and staff. At the same time, our health data coordinator, like I said, will be communicating with those health departments, both Kansas City and Clay County. And typically what we're doing is we're sending an almost daily report to them that's encrypted through email and giving them that information. I will say that right now we're turning our information around faster than the health department is able to get to it. So it's really helpful for us to have those contact tracers, because it enables us to get that information out faster to our families and to our staff. So I think that is the end of our presentation. So if you have any questions.
I'll speak. I'll start. Or are you starting? I just want to make a comment. I mean, this is very thorough. It's intense, and I appreciate really how seriously we're taking this. I mean, it should give a lot of people a lot of comfort, I would think, to know that these are the steps we're taking. So I really, hats off to you all for doing all of this. Thank you. And how many thermometers did we get? I missed that one.
The infrared thermometers?
Yeah.
The exact number was,
Sorry.
We purchased 338 infrared thermometers and have already distributed those to the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Bison.
No? I really don't have any questions. I mean, I just appreciate the thoroughness of the presentation and everything that everyone has done to ensure really the community's safety. So it's amazing. It warms my heart. I appreciate it so much as a mother and as a school board member and as a community member. It's amazing, and I very much appreciate it.
I just have a few comments. I think as Mrs. Porter said, this was a lot of moving parts, and it was definitely obvious tonight in listening to all the different departments that you couldn't move unless someone else moved and everyone moved together, and here we are today with this wonderful plan. And I look at some of these products here on the table and think, these weren't around 6-8 months ago. These are in production now, being made to meet the needs, and I thank the team that had the foresight to jump on this at the very beginning, as I know a lot of districts are scrambling and are back ordered and not getting the supplies that they need. And that long list, Stacy, that you read of everything that you have in hand, I commend the efforts of the team in getting the stocks ready to meet the challenges that we might have so that we can keep our kids safe and do our part. Thank you.
Again, thank you very, very much. I thought it was a very good, very thorough presentation. And I certainly appreciate the time and efforts that has gone into this to really make sure that our students and staff safety comes first. Probably my questions, if I could, just maybe in just a conversation with Dr. Clemens for just a second, if we could, just for planning purposes. I know that you specifically said, Dr. Clemens, that the Clay County Health Department really cannot give you an exact date. But just to help our community out a little bit, I mean, we expect to start school, I think, on Tuesday, September the 8th. And based upon the criteria that we have right now with the decision-making matrix, that elementary students would go into scenario 1, and secondary students, grades 6 to 12, would go into scenario 2. And if that would, I think, again, at this point in time, it's August the 25th. School's really now just a couple weeks away. Really, that's what we're thinking at this point in time to go forward with. I guess the question would be, just to help families plan, if there would be a change, what type of maybe grace period might there be to notify families that there'd be a change other than what's suggested? I mean, would it be a week or two or maybe a month to help them better plan what the next several weeks or months might look like for them?
Yeah, Mr. Harrell, I think that's the $1 million question, and we're continuing to work on that. I know Communications has this posted on our website, kind of where we continue to be. I've been told by the health directors I work with, if a community spread was over, if community spread was determined to be over where we need to be, they're going to shut us down, much like they did last March.
Right.
So if it gets out of hand, if we get below that 5% and community spread is way down, we obviously would have to give parents a few weeks' notice and able to change their plans if we went 100% face-to-face again.
Right.
I feel like we are, again, with the data that I have now, we're solid in the plan moving forward with face-to-face for pre-K through 5th graders and then the hybrid model for 6 through 12. We've been in that for a few weeks now. I feel like that's where we're going to stay. When I talk to the health officials, they feel comfortable with where we are right now as well. And they don't see change, but they said, anything can happen. And so they wouldn't allow me to publish a date to say, during this date, this is what's going to happen. I do believe we will stay in our current state for a while. But I also understand we would have to pick a date if we were going back full face-to-face, if community spread was way down, and we could do that. We would need to pick a date to allow everybody to prepare, to allow Mike to get his buses ready for our kitchen, to be able to prepare for students. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but we certainly would try to make that at a mid-semester and or mid-quarter and end of quarter, some natural break in the calendar for us to make that happen.
Yeah, thank you very much. And again, I know it's a moving target, and more than anything else, what we could do is to try to work within our community, so our community as a whole can help us tackle this issue to get the rates down to as low as possible, if not eliminated. But more than anything else, I think it does help us give a sense to our community that they can, so to say, plan for the proposal that we have here before them tonight, and that if there are changes to that for the better, let's put it that way, that there would be some type of grace period that they would be allowed to transition back into. With the worst case scenario would be our transmission rates would get higher, which would potentially have the impact to shut us down immediately, which we certainly don't want to happen. But the point is to help families better plan. we will be able to offer some type of transition back into a schedule.
Yes, sir, Mr. Darrell.
Is our
And-
hope.
Yes, sir. When we have those conversations, Chris Shanks and Dr. Sutton, almost on a daily basis, we try to watch the trend patterns and communicate with both Clay County and Kansas City.
Yeah. Again, I just think it's a full commitment with not only our school family here, but also our parents' employers, so that they can just have a better heads up of what might to expect in the
Yes,
next
sir.
coming weeks or months. So, thank you.
Others, Dr. Ward.
First of all, I'm very impressed. Thank you very much for all your hard work and for all of the results you've already produced. I don't have very much to add. I have heard anecdotally from those 2 schools that we had in session this summer and from some conversations earlier in the evening that where teachers have been able to see what you're doing, they feel more comfortable and more at ease with it. And that causes me to feel more comfortable and more at ease with it. And the presentation tonight certainly helps with that. It's obvious that we've been intentional, we've been thorough, we've done everything we can to anticipate, and at this point, we're going to continue, what is the old phrase, monitor and adjust, continue as we go forward. I think all of us now know you get up in the morning and you find out what the new rules are because they changed overnight. And sadly, I can't see that circumstance changing for some period of time here. So I thank you for your dedicated service and for what you've done to get us in, I think, what is as good a shape as we could hope to be in. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I echo my colleagues' comments on the effort and the work put in. I know the hours have been long and the commitment has been above and beyond the call of duty, so I appreciate that. I do have a couple of questions just for clarification's sake, and let me start with a suggestion. It's my understanding face shields are basically now for SPED, teachers, staff, face shields. Is that fair so far? My suggestion is that, especially in elementary schools, and I think it ought to be system-wide, so kids can see the faces of the teacher, that we supply all of our teachers with face shields versus masks. I think that would make a great difference, especially in elementary schools, so the kids can see the expression of the teacher and so forth. So I make that recommendation.
Mr. Stone, I think we're still required to wear a face mask even if we do have a face shield.
Well,
One doesn't replace the other.
Oh, okay. You sure about that? I know you are. I'm kidding. So we have thermometers. Does that mean now we're going to be doing random scanning? Is that just for what purpose is that? I'd love to see random scans.
We do a symptomology check first, and Casey talked about that they're doing with the athletes. We ask the kids questions. We look at the kids, we see, are they putting their head down? Is there some reason that we think they need to go to the nurse? Those checks are fine, but they're cursory. Any kid that we think might be ill is actually going to get then a second digital thermometer check, which is extremely accurate, so we can know exactly what the temperature is and know how to react to treatment.
Okay, thank you, sir. Clarity, I know we discussed this some, but just clarity on the way the data is collected. One of my concerns, if the tests are fewer, that can skew the data. I think we might not get accurate data. So we're getting a combination of our part of the district that's in Kansas City, right? And Clay County as a whole, or Clay County just in our district?
Information we receive from Clay County is Clay County. It doesn't include the Kansas City portion of the North Kansas City School District. So Dr. Sutton and Dr. Shanks have been working extremely hard to gather that data by zip code, because that's a more accurate way for us to see that. Chad, I hope I haven't put you on the spot.
No, that's accurate. We get a weekly email from the health department with our zip code data so that we can monitor the community spread within our district boundary. So we look at that. We also look at the city of Kansas City and put it all together. But we get that weekly zip code data every Tuesday by about 12 o'clock.
Okay, good. Thank you. Two more. One of my concerns is transparency, which is one of the values that we have as a district. And so I think if I remember correctly, if a case occurs in a particular school, the parents will be notified.
Yeah. The people that need to know will know, and I'm not an expert on that. So, Janelle, do you feel comfortable in just touching base?
Sure. So right now, the way we have our communication set up is that we first notify anybody who's deemed to be a close exposure. So if they've been exposed, which is less than 6 feet for more than 15 minutes with or without a mask, we're notifying those people and asking them to quarantine. After that, we're notifying all staff and parents that there was a case in the building, but that everybody who has been deemed as an exposure has been notified separately.
Okay, thank you. Last question, and I'm referring basically to the adults in the building, as they say, well, children as well, but for our students and staff, consequences of violating a policy.
Yeah, I think there's two violations of the procedure. One is students that aren't intentionally violating and we would encourage them to get their mask up, whatever it might be. And then if there's someone that is refusing to follow procedure, we would move them to virtual.
Okay. Thank you very much. Again, I do appreciate the effort that's been put into all this.
Thank you all for being here. I have just a couple comments and questions. I think, Michael, you said your motto is not on our watch, and I kind of feel that same sense of motto as a board member and as a member of the district. And each of you have taken that same kind of motto very seriously, that you are doing 110% of your parts to make sure that we do not transmit. So I am thoroughly impressed. A couple specifics at graduation, our turnaround of the various cohort groups that came in and did graduation. Boy, people were out in the field, people were sensitive to wearing the mask, the students were well behaved. It just really worked very seamlessly. If we can continue to look at our activities and our events in the same way and have the same type of protocols, that it really is a privilege to be able to do that this year, and we all have to protect each other. I think we can get through this because we certainly have the infrastructure in place to make sure that we will be very successful with this. Very impressed with getting the right supplies and information out there about their utilization and the safety concerns about exposure to children with the chemicals and all of that. I totally appreciate our expertise in each of your respective fields to make sure that things are safe. A couple of things about communication. I was just curious about potential for gaps and how we have trained some of our staff and teachers and support staff and all in getting back to school about their own specific responsibilities, and then the follow through on that and making sure that everyone knows. Can anybody speak to how we've in-serviced or provided that support across the entire district for consistency?
Yes, with regards to the level of consistency, we developed a district-wide training module that essentially encompasses our entire back-to-school plan. So we took every section of our return-to-school plan and worked over the summer to develop a consistent module that we trained our principals on, and then our principals then in turn delivered to our staff. We also developed a student one as well. Some of our Leadership Institute candidates developed a really good video for our students to watch on the first day so that we could really reinforce some of I'd say the consistent mitigation strategies, such as frequent hand washing, disinfecting, sanitization, physical distancing, and the wearing of cloth face masks. So we really developed some models to provide that consistent communication to all of our teachers, and they have all received that module at this point, and then all of our students that will get it on the first day.
Madam President, I'd also say that our communications department is doing a pretty good job of trying to produce one-pagers
to help us as we move through them.
You have the copy at your table of our staff version of that. And we wanted to show that to you in conjunction with the presentation tonight. But it will be distributed widely then to all staff members tomorrow. Then we also have a version of it for the public. So that then shares all of the measures that we're taking, and that will be distributed via social media on our website and just promoted so that we can reassure people that we have all of these items in place if they didn't tune into the board meeting tonight.
Very good. So I hope many, many people listen to this presentation because I think it will create a lot of peace of mind and great information. I also like the concept, Casey, I think you mentioned the opportunity to make ambassadors of health and safety with our children. And if that goes to all 21,000 plus of our kids, then we will be really in good stead in this community, plus our staff, to really impact our numbers and keep us safe and keep us in school at the lowest possible threshold once we kind of get a handle on this. So that's really our job, isn't it, all the way around, is to continue to educate and keep people safe for their lifetimes. So I tremendously appreciate that. Well, I will not speak any longer, but my thanks to each of you individually and for a very proactive and excellent job done. I'm just so very pleased that we can start school with this assurance. Thank you. I will proceed then at this point to item 7.03. That is our Board of Education Committee assignments. That was presented to you in your packets. I appreciate those that provided feedback, and many of yours stayed the same, or hopefully we'll tap into your interests and talents. So if you have any concerns about any of the individual committees, just please let me know, and we'll go from there, and we'll be off and running then with those committees. The last is board liaison report, and this is a time where the board members can just share any attendance or opportunities or outside presentations that they have participated in. We've been still a little quiet. We did graduations, but and convocation, we had the opportunity to gather. I know, is there anything, I know Dr. Ward has probably something.
Two quick things. There is a TIF amendment going before the City Council on Wednesday. The City Council Committee, Matt and I reviewed it, and it will increase the amount of funding, but it's coming out of the city part of it, not our part of it. It's coming out of the Super TIF money. So it does not increase our commitment to projects tied to the North Oak project. The second thing is I have forwarded to the board and the board docs. There is an effort afoot initiated by council people in the 3rd and 5th district to get a change in the way that economic development incentives are being handled, and one that would be less abusive to school districts. And with that, one of the things that is going, I would say, is I would also want to commend the 1st district council people. Both of them are working very hard on the same thing and have worked hard with us to get amendments. There was a hearing before the city council on Wednesday of last week, and I was asked to testify based on some of the research I've done over the last 10 years, and I did that. It was a strange thing. I testified before a city council committee and heard what I said to them on NPR. So it's so I don't know how all of that works, but that's how it worked. And then Monday of this week, I was invited to be on Steve Kraski's show to talk about the same amendment, and I did that. I think I sent all of my colleagues a copy of the link to pull that down so you can listen to it for your sleeping pleasure. Anyway, that was done. The effort is going forward. The latest we heard is that, well, what we heard last week was the subsequent hearing would be on the 16th of September. And what we heard yesterday is that the subsequent hearing will be in October. So I think what that really means is there's going to be a lot of sausage manufactured in the next 2 months. There is more interest on the part of the council in actually doing something than any time I recall. But as you start to do something, you will engender a whole lot more resistance. And so that's why the 2 months is in there. And I think part of what they're also going to roll into it is a potential effort to do something to take the 7 or 8 different economic development incentives and create a common understanding amongst all of them. So that's what's going on that front. And so that's not technically a liaison report, but I have identified myself as a citizen and been labeled a member of this school board, so I have not presented myself as a representative of this board, but they have certainly tied me to my service on this board. And I'd be glad to answer any questions, even though we don't normally in these reports do that, but I do it.
Good. Yes, anything? Okay. Judy? Nothing?
Well, yes, I actually was able to tour some of our schools and witness firsthand student and staff safety coming first. And I just continue to be in awe of this district and our staff and our employees and our leadership. I was able to see clerks and administrative staff working their tails off to get kids registered and ready for school, principals that are answering questions and making decisions that they've never had to make before, all the while being a pillar and comfort and a rock for every human under their roof. So I just very much appreciated being able to tour the schools, witness that, and be assured that our safety is first. Absolutely, our kids' safety, our teachers' safety. And I also wanted to make sure that every person who has come forth and provided their opinions and communicated their concerns on both sides of the aisle, every concern is valid, every voice is heard, and I also wanted to plug Thursday night's community conversation. Speaking of voices being heard, I'm eager for the second round of the community conversations on Thursday evening, and I will be there, and I hope to see a lot of faces and hear a lot of voices.
Good, thank you. Okay. Just briefly, Dr. Ward and I toured the Early Childhood Center, which is just amazing, and it is still a shell that's beginning to form, and so you're beginning to see where the classrooms will appear and all, and I really appreciate the staff and construction team that's working so diligently on it. They're very committed to our students and the quality of building that's going in there, a very good investment of our community. I believe it'll be well used. So with that, your board education meeting calendar is there. Our next meeting will be September 8th, back to school. It will be the workshop format, as Dr. Clemens alluded to. And I just want to close by, on behalf of the board, to thank all the speakers and home visitors tonight that tuned in for the meeting. We are very pleased to share as much information as we can and remain available to you. Thank you for your commitment to the schools and to our students. Safe return to school, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Be safe and be well. Thank you, and the meeting is adjourned.